Picture a queen gliding through a candlelit hall, her gown a cascade of silk and velvet, jewels glinting like captured stars. Every step is a performance, every gesture rehearsed, every smile calculated. She is painted in portraits as divine, immortal, untouched by the grime of human existence. Yet beneath the gold, beneath the lace, beneath the crushing weight of history, her body bled. And what she endured each month was not only discomfort but humiliation, exposure, and surveillance. This is the hidden truth of how royal women lived with their periods, without pads, without privacy, and without mercy. For centuries, menstruation was not merely a private matter. In royal households, it was politics. The body of a queen was national property. Her cycle was monitored, recorded, whispered about, and even reported to foreign ambassadors. A single late period could stir hopes of an heir or fears of dynastic failure. Catherine of Braganza, wife of Charles II of England, lived under this relentless scrutiny. Each month, her bleeding, or lack of it, was noted by her physicians, gossiped about by courtiers, and dispatched in coded letters to embassies abroad. Imagine the suffocating pressure. Her fertility was not her own. It belonged to England. It belonged to Portugal. It belonged to the fragile balance of Europe. And still, these women had to endure the physical reality of menstruation without the slightest comfort of modern hygiene. No pads, no tampons, no discreet bathrooms. Instead, linen rags were tied in place, often secured with belts or ribbons, worn beneath layers of undergarments and heavy skirts. They were washed, dried, and reused until the fabric stiffened and frayed. Some queens, like Marie Antoinette, had theirs made of fine cotton or embroidered silk. But luxury did not change the fact: they leaked. A single stain on a gown could spark scandal. At Versailles, whispers of irregular cycles or ruined garments became political ammunition. Changing these cloths was far from simple. Royal dresses were architectural feats. Corsets that cinched ribs until breathing was shallow, hoops and farthingales that spread skirts wider than doorways, layers of petticoats that weighed more than a child. Beneath these fortresses of fashion, linen cloths had to be adjusted, removed, replaced. And the queen could never do this alone. Privacy was a luxury she did not possess. Ladies-in-waiting hovered constantly, noblewomen chosen for loyalty and discretion. They helped remove stained linens, cleaned garments, and fetched water for washing. They were the silent guardians of the queen's bleeding body. Elizabeth I, the famed Virgin Queen, relied on her ladies to manage every aspect of her person, from dressing her in layers of silk to discreetly handling her menstrual cloths. They knew her secrets more intimately than any man, and those secrets could change the course of empires. But secrecy was fragile. Even the most careful planning could not hide the truth when blood leaked through layers of fabric. Accidents were inevitable. Isabella of Castile, renowned for her piety and power, faced constant public duties, religious ceremonies, and audiences with foreign envoys. She could not excuse herself for womanly reasons. Any sign of bleeding was humiliating and dangerous, for it invited speculation about her fertility, her health, and by extension, Spain's future. To be a queen was to live with constant fear that her own body might betray her at the worst possible moment. The odor of menstruation was impossible to conceal. Blood-soaked rags were washed in cold water, often with vinegar, salt, or wine to dissolve the stains. They were scrubbed with harsh soaps made from animal fat and lye, then dried by smoky hearths, stiff and yellowed. But the metallic tang of blood lingered. Physicians sometimes examined the cloths themselves, convinced that the color or smell revealed hidden truths. Was the queen ill? Was she poisoned? Was she fertile? Marie de Medici's menstrual linens, like those of other queens, became diagnostic tools, objects of fascination for court doctors who treated women's bodies as open ledgers of dynastic fate. Medicine offered no relief. In fact, it deepened the misery. Menstruation was seen as both essential and dangerous. Doctors claimed it was the body's way of purging toxins, without which women would grow hysterical or suffocate in their own corruption. At the same time, they believed menstrual blood could sour wine, blight crops, and corrode iron. This contradiction defined royal womanhood. The queen's bleeding was both necessary and polluting, sacred and shameful. If cycles stopped, treatments were brutal. Mercury tonics, believed to stimulate the womb, poisoned nerves and organs. Lead powders, sprinkled on undergarments to mask odors, seeped into skin, damaging fertility and cognition. Bloodletting was performed even on menstruating women, leaving them pale, weak, and vulnerable to infection. Princess Charlotte of Wales, beloved heir to the British throne, endured years of such misguided practices before her tragic early death in 1817. Examinations were invasive and degrading. Physicians often inspected stained cloths before moving on to the queen herself. Without anesthesia, without sterilization, and without privacy, these internal examinations were painful and humiliating. Catherine of Braganza endured countless such procedures, her body treated as a public problem to be solved. Elizabeth I, fiercely protective of her image, feared the gossip that might follow any mention of irregularity. And Catherine de' Medici, who ruled France as queen consort and regent, endured endless pregnancies, miscarriages, and bleeding, her body the battlefield upon which the dynasty of Valois was fought. The emotional toll was crushing. In her letters, Duchess Elizabeth Charlotte of Orleans described her exhaustion at being discussed like a vessel, her frustration at constant surveillance, her despair at having no control over her own body. Queens were expected to project divine authority while silently enduring cramps, fatigue, and humiliation. There were no sick days, no excuses. Balls continued. Banquets unfolded. Ceremonies dragged on for hours. Portraits were painted, corsets were laced, smiles were perfected. Behind the scenes, ladies in waiting hurried to adjust gowns, swap cloths, or signal physicians. But in public, the queen appeared flawless. Always flawless. Even the process of cleaning menstrual cloths was treated as ritual. They were soaked, scrubbed, inspected, and pressed before being returned. In some courts, physicians watched the wash water, convinced it contained secrets of the queen's health. Imagine the indignity of knowing that your most intimate fluids were examined, discussed, and recorded, not in whispers of sympathy, but in the language of politics. To bleed was to be surveilled. To menstruate was to be nationalized. And yet, despite the shame, despite the pain, despite the humiliation, royal women endured. They endured while carrying crowns that symbolized divine order. They endured while ambassadors reported on their wombs. They endured while their bodies were poisoned in the name of medicine. History remembers their jewels, their gowns, their palaces. But beneath every crown was a woman who bled. Beneath every throne was a body racked by cramps, soiled with blood, bound by corsets, and silenced by shame. Their portraits show serene faces, but never the stains on their sheets, never the odor of their cloths, never the whispered humiliations of attendants struggling to contain the mess of monarchy. So the next time you stand before a portrait of Elizabeth or Catherine or Marie, look closer. Imagine the hidden truth. Behind the powdered face and jeweled crown was a woman enduring the same monthly cycle as millions of others, but with no pads, no privacy, and no dignity. She carried not only the weight of empire on her shoulders, but the quiet, unspoken burden of a body that bled in silence. Month after month, year after year. And in that silence lies perhaps the greatest strength of all.